I just think it's overused a little bit, the polar vortex. A lot of times it's just a blast of cold air, and yes, some of it comes from higher up in the atmosphere. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a full lesson on what the polar vortex is. We did this the other night too, but I want to do it again because we probably got some different viewers here. And Chris, let me know if we get any questions while we're doing this. I'd be happy to answer them. Okay, so this is how the atmosphere works. These are the different levels of the atmosphere. The x-axis here, colder air, warmer air. So this is the lowest level of the atmosphere. This is called the troposphere. As you go up higher in the atmosphere, it generally gets colder in the troposphere. And then you hit this thing called the tropopause. That's right where the stratosphere starts. So this is like right around the area where planes are flying, the tops of thunderstorms. I think this is really nice to look at. You look at the thunderstorm here. The tallest thunderstorms will barely get into the very bottom of the stratosphere. So then you got the stratosphere, where the temperature generally rises as you go up. And don't worry too much about these, the mesosphere, the thermosphere. It's a lot of different layers in the Earth's atmosphere, but this is really what we're talking about here. Now, the polar vortex, remember, all of the weather in the atmosphere takes place in the troposphere. The polar vortex is an area of low pressure that sits up in the stratosphere. So it's way above our heads, but when it gets perturbed by stuff, it can create some downward moving things that can have some effects on the actual weather, which is going on down in the lower levels of the atmosphere. Now, this is the forecast for the polar vortex over the next couple of weeks. Right now, we're already weaker than usual. This is the average strength of the polar vortex. It's forecast to get even weaker as we move forward. So I think a lot of people would look at that and say, hey, a weaker polar vortex, that's good. That means less cold air. Strong polar vortex means more cold air, right? No, it's actually the complete opposite. And let me explain what I mean. So the polar vortex, this is what it looks like. And remember, it's way up above our heads. It's above where planes fly and above where the weather takes place. It's this big area of, pretty much always spinning low pressure up here. And it can be a little stronger sometimes. It can be a little weaker sometimes. When it's strong, it's like a really strong rubber band. I couldn't find a rubber band. Let's pretend this is the Earth. I got a little cup of water I was drinking here, and I found a little charging thing here. I wish I could have looked for a rubber band, but I just had this idea before break. When it's strong, it keeps all the cold air up here. It's very tight. All the cold air stays up here. There's no way it comes down. When it's loose, when it's weak, look, it's more like this. Like all this cold air up here, it's loose, it's weak, and then all of a sudden it can start drooping down. It can start drooping down. That's kind of the idea with the polar vortex. So the idea is strong polar vortex, cold air stays way up there over the North Pole. Weak polar vortex, you get stuff that looks like this, these troughs that can kind of droop down into the U.S. at times. And there is a forecast coming up here over the next couple of weeks for something called like sudden stratospheric warming. So there's going to be this stratospheric warming event, which is going to perturb the polar vortex to some degree. So when you get extreme warming that happens up here in the stratosphere, it will have some effects on what ends up going on down in the troposphere, where the weather actually happens. And so what it will typically do is weaken the polar vortex. So then you get these big troughs that come down toward the south. And again, it can be a little bit tough to forecast exactly where they're going to come down. But in this case, it looks like it's probably going to be at the earliest late November, more likely probably into like the second week of December when we start to tap into some of this this cold air. I think this is the graphic that explains it the best. The warm air over the Arctic, way up above our heads, displaces colder air farther toward the south. So you get these lobes of Arctic air that kind of move across the northern hemisphere. So it'll be like a big trough like this, and then it'll move this way. And so this is what people are referring to when they say the polar vortex. Here comes a piece of the polar vortex because it got weak and it dropped a big piece of it into the United States. Not because it's strong. Strong is the opposite. Tight rubber band. Keeps all the cold air up toward the north.